All right. Hi, everybody. This is Nicole Johnson-Zian, news editor of All Israel News. And I'm here today with David Parsons, who is the vice president and senior spokesman of the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem. Hi, David. Thank you for being with us.
Hi, Nicole. How are you?
Very well. Thank you. Thank you. I wanted to ask you about the work of the ICEJ, specifically in context of what's happening with the war, with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and obviously a lot of the news in Israel has shifted to aliyah and aliyah's immigration to Israel, and there were plenty of debates in the Knesset about how many refugees total to accept, what to how to process Jews, non-Jews, and aliyah specifically for Jews, for people who can prove that they're Jewish. So a lot of organizations went to work immediately, like to try. This is among other things like humanitarian efforts. But I noted that the ICEJ also, you jumped in with something very specific, and I saw that your mission was to help Holocaust survivors that were in Ukraine. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, first of all, why, how did you specify Holocaust survivors and why?
When an urgent aliyah like this comes up, you try and do everything you can, and we're trying to help at all points in the whole process of extricating people from war zones, getting them over to Lviv in Western Ukraine, across the border, helping them in temporary shelters, getting them on flights to Israel. And then once they land, it could take a few months to several years for some of these families to really adjust to life in Israel. They need help all along that way. We're doing what we can with the Jewish Agency. We've helped over 500 and some through them, and we're going to welcome another flight sometime this week. But we've really we've been able to find a way to help Holocaust survivors who are in some of these cities being shelled by the Russians. And because they're older, in their 80s or 90s, they're on walkers, they're in wheelchairs, they tend to be reclusive. Even some of their family have been separated and are worried. And so we've been working on a list of around 75 Holocaust survivors scattered all through Eastern Ukraine to bring them out. Most of the time you have to go with specially equipped vans and ambulances that can handle wheelchairs and disabled people. And you have to have some family members to talk them out of leaving a home that they've lived in for 70, 80 years. A lot of them have been in the same place all these years. And then get them out through all the checkpoints. You're talking dozens of checkpoints before you get to, safety over in Lviv, and then all the rockets, missiles. We've got all sorts of footage of our vans driving along the highways, and here's a smoke rising from a bombing here, an airfield there, and such. And so they're right in the middle of this war, taking great risks, but we're sponsoring this effort to bring these survivors and their families to safety in Israel.
Well, that's amazing. What has been some of the stories or some of the challenges or dangers that the people have encountered, and who's doing the work on the ground for you guys as well?
We have an Israeli charitable partner that we've done a unique residential home solely for needy Holocaust survivors, people who aren't making it, who survived the Nazi genocide in World War II. It's up in Haifa. We have around 70, 80 residents there. They're all Holocaust survivors, and we take care of them. Some are getting very elderly. It's intensive care for some, but it's a real labor of love. We have a Christian team on site, a Christian embassy team on site that is also helping 5 or 6 people, physios, assistants, nurse, people who are professional at dealing with these things. And that partner had set up in Ukraine 2 or 3 months ago to our Israeli partner to help just some survivors there, just as another thing, because they heard there were a lot. So they were already registered there in Ukraine. And when the war started, they went over to Poland and got registered as a humanitarian relief aid with the vests and everything. They got the vans they needed to help. And rather than being in there to help these survivors live out their lives, it turns out we're helping to bring them out now. So they had a foot on the ground already. There's some Israeli and local Ukrainian and Polish volunteers who are helping drive the vans, get the people. They're very brave, and we've been sponsoring this whole effort for about 2 weeks now.
So have any of them yet made it to Israel?
They're coming in 1-2 flights at a time. Normally, the way they're landing now, they have like a really rapid aliyah process there in Poland, Hungary, Romania, where normally you have long interviews, you got to prove your documentation. If they can just prove anything about being Jewish, if they have relatives in Israel, whatever, it's a 5-minute interview. Who's your relatives? What's your name? And they put them on a flight and sort them out here. And some are staying with relatives, some in hotels. So it's a very rapid process, and they'll determine who really qualifies here. But there's around 45,000 Jews who can prove their Jewishness left in Ukraine, and along with their close immediate family members, spouses or children and others, it's around 200,000 in all that we're talking about. Some are staying in Europe so they'll be closer to just move back. They want to come back, but those who are wanting to make Aliyah, so far it's been around 6,000. There's another 7,000 waiting in hotels and such in Eastern Europe, and they expect even more. And also a pickup in Aliyah from Russia and Belarus because of the downturn of the economies there.
Right. What can you tell us about Aliyah in general? Because I know you guys are very active in this, and I feel like, every couple of months we're writing an article about a flight that you help sponsor,
Yes.
also from Ethiopia. But, give us a picture in general of Aliyah, and also what's the difference between, this is like, I've heard it referred to different ways, but this is an emergency Aliyah.
Yes. It's probably, the most urgent aliyah operation since, say, some of the ones that were done to bring Ethiopian Jews out of the civil war in Ethiopia in 85 and 91, Operation Moses, Operation Solomon. So it's, trying to spare people's lives and get them here. We have assisted in the early 90s when we really started, even before then in the 80s. The only way out of the former Soviet Union was through Budapest and Vienna, Hungary and Austria, and a lot of them were from Ukraine. A lot of the Jews coming out at that time, the refuseniks, and we had Christian hospitality homes. Some of the folks who formed the embassy in 1980 had already been involved in helping that stream of Aliyah come out. But since the fall of Soviet communism and Ukraine became independent, we've assisted almost 50,000 Jews to come back to Israel from Ukraine alone, a total of 165,000 or so from all over the world, from about 45 countries or so. And, so we've been right in the heart of this, from Russia, Belarus in recent years, even during COVID, when all the international flights were grounded. There were still flights bringing Aliyah flights bringing Jews home from Russia, Belarus, Ukraine. We were involved in that, and even the Ethiopian. We've already committed to a flight that will be coming in a few weeks, hopefully around Passover or so, which there was a holdup in the Ethiopian Aliyah, but that's been cleared now, and we're expecting quite a few flights. They're trying to bring 3,000 from there over the next few months. But this Ukrainian aliyah, it'll probably be 15 to 20,000 within the first 3 months or so. And that is compared to 3,000 last year. So you're talking 10 times as many in 3 months as they did from Ukraine all of last year. There's going to be a lot from Russia as well. It's very hard to get out of there now. The train between St. Petersburg and Helsinki, which is one of the routes out, they've shut down the train, but before it shut down, just ordinary Russians trying to flee the country, the tickets for that 2-hour, 3-hour train ride were $9,000.
Oh,
So it's hard to get out of Russia right now, but when they are able to get out, we expect tens of thousands to come from there as well. The pool there of the people who are actually Jewish and close family members who are eligible under the law of return, it's around 800,000 still in Russia, plus Belarus has tens of thousands. So this is an urgent wave, and hopefully we'll be able to get them to Israel.
okay. So that's my next question. They get to Israel, let's say, then what? I mean, this is a small country with a lot of issues, very expensive to live in. And how do we help these, potentially tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people integrate into Israel? What's the plan for after?
Well, one of the good sides to this whole crisis is that there are already more than 1 million Russian-speaking Jews from the former Soviet republics already in Israel. And that helps sort of with makes a little softer landing spot than some of these other, when the Russians first came in big waves 30 years ago. And even on our own staff at the Christian Embassy here in Jerusalem, we have staff members from Ukraine, from Russia, from Belarus, who already their families are coming, and some of them are staying with them. And, that's a big relief for them. They've been on the phone night and day with them. How is it? You're getting bombed. Why don't you get out and whatever? And as soon as they were able to make it, they came. Of course, the men have to stay behind in Ukraine to help defend the country. And that is one of the unique things about this aliyah. It's an aliyah of women and children right now. And they're just going to have to sort out when the men are able to come and join their families here in Israel. And some of these folks were already taking Hebrew lessons. They were already involved in aliyah camps. They've just accelerated something they were planning to do. There's a lot of young folks that are coming now that we've already been sponsoring through some of the youth aliyah activities since they were 12, 13 years old. So, it's a little easier in some ways, but the mass numbers that are coming right now, along with the Ethiopian aliyah that's about to kick in again, it's the Jewish agency is being stretched, and the need is there. And sometimes it takes a couple years to truly adjust and get planted here in the land. We need to help them all the way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting over the next couple of years as the face of the country changes a little bit.
Yeah, the Russian speaking aliyah from all the Soviet Jews who came, it came at a moment where Israel was starting to get this reputation as a high-tech powerhouse, and they really fueled that transition into the startup nation. A lot of them had engineering degrees, computer degrees. That was sort of not the highest level, but they were proficient enough to really help man all these startups and high-tech companies in Israel.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so maybe we have something good to look forward to.
Yes.
Who knows what God has planned.
Yeah.
But is there anything you would like to add about the situation or about what the ICEJ is doing?
It's not nice to see people basically having to make a decision to flee. Normally, you want this to be, something you consider, and you go for Zionist principles and biblical principles. We're going to return to the Jewish people. And these are folks who, for whatever reasons, a lot of them, it's older people who just decided to stay, and some of the family members stayed behind to take care of them because they were just so used to living there in Ukraine, in their own home, their own community. And some of these are coming out. But, they're all expressing, thank God there's an Israel to flee to, because these Holocaust survivors in particular, Nicole, they witnessed some of the worst atrocities of the Holocaust, Babin Yar, other massacres and such, and even some of the Ukrainian people. It is true that some of them collaborated with the Nazis and even helped kill Jews. And, but today there's an Israel that they can flee to, and they're very grateful for that. And we hope they can live out their lives in dignity and peace here.
Well, that's awesome. And bless you guys, bless your work for, for your part in that, for making that happen. And our prayers are with you, and of course with them, with the people that you're getting in. So thank you very much,
Nicole.
Thank you. This has been great. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll be in touch for an update. So thanks a lot, David.